Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles, and I welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and where we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And in today's episode, the topic is, did Scottie Pippen cross the line by attacking Michael Jordan and Phil Jackson? So that's the topic I want to get into in today's video. But before we get into that, I want you guys to please make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Also, make sure you go ahead and check out Dreamerspro Max, a place where you can go and start basketball discussion chat live during games. We have that linked in the description below. Make sure you guys check that out, and also click make sure you click the join button to join the channel to receive loyalty badges from our channel. Anyway, let me get into this topic here. So this one here is a bombshell. This one came out of, I don't even know where this one came from, right? So yesterday, I was out there and I was just kind of surfing the internet, and I saw an interview with Scottie Pippen on the Dan Patrick Show that I'm going to get to today. So I'm going to get to that in a moment. But anyway, we all remember the Last Dance documentary, the docuseries that came out last year. Hell of a docuseries. And I didn't quite see anything like that. We were all going through the global pandemic, the lockdown, and they released that 10-part series. And it was sensational, right? Because it finally gave us a behind-the-scenes look at Michael Jordan's career, and it put a lot of his accomplishments and his highlights in context. I think when you go out there and try to look at great players and look at their careers, and you're just watching highlights, and you're seeing these great performances, but you don't know the context in which those performances were delivered, you kind of miss the gravitas of some of the things that you were seeing. And that documentary really, added some context to Jordan's career. I think at the end of that docuseries, everyone, pretty much the majority of people, understood that Michael Jordan was certainly the greatest player of all time, because they were able to see, they were able to go behind the scenes, especially for a younger generation that didn't really get a chance to experience Jordan. People like me who didn't really get a chance to see Jordan in his prime years with the Chicago Bulls. The docuseries also followed Mike. It also kind of chronicled Jordan's career, but it was also centered on the last year with the Chicago Bulls. Hence the name "The Last Dance," a name that Phil Jackson came up with, saying that this is going to be our last dance, given the fact that he understood that was going to be his final year with the Chicago Bulls. Now, at the end of that series, there were some people that were feeling, let's say, there were some people that took offense at some of the things that happened in the docuseries, and one of them in particular was Michael Jordan's running mate in Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen didn't like the way he was portrayed in the docuseries. He thought it was going to be something else. Turned out to be a completely different thing. And over the last few days now, we know that Scottie Pippen has a book coming out, and he's been out there saying some pretty crazy stuff. One of those things was, he felt that Kevin Durant was a more talented player than Michael Jordan. And of course, KD took exception to it, and he's a human being, so why wouldn't he? Number one, for the people that say, "Oh, KD's taking exception to it," well, Scottie Pippen took exception to the things that were said about him. So why must it be different for KD? So you can say whatever you want to say about KD. He shouldn't take exception, but other people, when you say stuff about them, they should take exception. Like Scottie Pippen, like LeBron James took exception to the things that Charles Barkley said about him. So I think sometimes there's a little bit of hypocrisy kind of floating out there, and I think people like to pick and choose, like I call it selective outrage, about certain things that they want to be upset about, and pick and choose who they want to support and who they want to go against. But I thought Scottie Pippen was saying some crazy stuff. But then I listened to an interview that he just had on the Dan Patrick Show, and he said a bunch of things that left me floored. And at the end of watching it, I was pretty much stumped. So before I go too far, what I want to do is I want you guys to take a listen to some of the things. We're going to put together like a compilation of some of the comments that Scottie Pippen had that Scottie Pippen made in that interview, and then we're going to get back into it. So take a listen to that.
Help me understand the GQ article where you talked about the 1994 playoff game when you refused to go back in the game and Phil set up the play for Tony Kukoc.
Well, I mean, it's not much to be said. If you go back and look at when Scottie Pippen entered the Bulls and when Tony Kukoc entered the Bulls, and who deserved the last shot of the game.
No. I understand that, Scottie. I'm just going by what you said. You said you need to read between the fine lines. And then you go on to say it was a racial move to give him, Tony Kukoc, a rise. So,
well, I mean, if you knew that Scottie Pippen had been with the Bulls from 87, battled through the Pistons and every other team that we had to get to those 3 championships, wouldn't you give Scottie Pippen one opportunity to get a last-second shot without Michael Jordan? Like 1 year without Michael Jordan. Can I get one shot? Like, I'm doing all the dirty work.
but all of that I understand from the basketball standpoint. But when you say a racial move,
well, why would Tony, who was a rookie, get the last-second shot and you put me out of bounds? That's what I mean, racial. Like, that was Scottie Pippen's team.
But
Scottie
Phil
Pippen
then
was
but,
on pace to be an MVP that year, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, why would you put him in a position not to be successful? Why wouldn't you put him in a position to succeed? Michael Jordan is not there. So who's next in line for you?
But have you talked to Phil about this? Because by saying a racial move, then you're calling Phil a racist.
I don't got a problem with that.
Do you think Phil was or is?
Oh, yeah. I mean, do you remember Phil Jackson left the Lakers, wrote a book on Kobe Bryant, and then came back and coached him? I mean, who would do that? You name someone in professional sports that would do that, you know? I think he tried to expose Kobe in a way that he shouldn't have. You're the head coach, and you're the guy that sits in the locker room and tells the players, this is a circle, and everything stays within the circle because that's what team is about. But you as the head coach, open it up, and now you go out and you try to belittle, at that time, probably one of the greatest players in the game.
Well, it feels like he's disloyal. I don't know if that makes him a racist.
Well, that's your way of putting it out, and I have my way. I was in the locker room with him. I was in practices with him. You're looking for him afar.
Yeah, and look, that's why I wanted to have you on. But I go back, and Phil designed a play for Steve Kerr when Mike was there. And Mike didn't have a problem with that, did he?
I don't understand. You're not setting me up to answer the right question. What do you mean Phil set up a play for Steve Kerr? He didn't set that play for Steve Kerr. He set that play for Michael Jordan.
I thought in the huddle, Mike says, I'm going to throw you the ball. You'll be open at the foul line. And Phil had nothing to do with that?
And you don't want to get this show started because it'll take us a long time. Do you know all those cameras that's sitting in that huddle who they was working for?
The NBA.
So you know who Michael was speaking to when he said that, right? That was planned. That was speaking to the camera. That wasn't speaking out of what we're going to have to do, what the play is going to be. That was speaking to the camera. Had John Stockton not came down, trust me. But that was building his own documentary because he knew he was controlling the cameras.
Now, in that clip, Scottie Pippen said a few things that I want to unpack. The first one is, and I think is the one that most people are going to kind of hone in on, was that he said that Phil Jackson was a racist. And his reason for saying that was because at the time Michael Jordan wasn't with the team. He was the number one option on the team. And then he drew up a play, I think at the end of the game, for Tony Kukoc. I think it was a rookie at the time coming from Europe, over him. And he's like, we all know when Jordan is not here, I'm the number one option. So why would you draw up a play like this for him and not draw it up for me, right? He took exception to Phil Jackson doing that. And he said that the only thing he could think of was that the only reason that Phil Jackson would do that was because Phil Jackson is or was a racist. And when he said that, I had to kind of pause for a second. And I said, okay, wait a minute. You're calling Phil Jackson a racist. And Dan Patrick was like, because of that? And he goes on to say, well, no, I also was coached with this guy. I was coached by him, played under him for some years. I was with him, every day in practice and all of this stuff. And I can tell you that he's a racist. And I got to scrutinize some of those comments. So first of all, I just got some questions. If that's the reason, if Phil Jackson calling that play for drawing that play up for Tony Kukoc and not you, if that's the reason that you're saying Phil Jackson is a racist, I think that is absolutely absurd. That's the reason that we're going to say Phil Jackson is a racist. So I don't buy that, right? I don't buy that, number one. Number two, if Phil Jackson is a racist, why didn't we hear other players come out and say this? Phil Jackson coached Tyronn Lue. He coached Rick Fox. He coached Ron Harper. He coached Michael Jordan. He coached Kobe Bryant. He coached Shaquille O'Neal. He coached Lamar Odom. He coached Ron Artest. He coached Matt Barnes. Why haven't I heard anything like this from any of these other players? I've never heard anything like that from Jack. It's not like as if we're talking about the former owner of the Los Angeles Clippers and Donald Sterling, where there were numerous cases of people saying this guy is a flat-out racist, Baron Davis. Of course, the thing that he had with, what's his name, with Magic Johnson. So we know there's so many instances. And, of course, the audio of him being recorded with the conversation that he was having with his girlfriend or whatever you want to call her at the time. So there's evidence to support that notion that this guy is a racist. Fine, we get that. But in this case, I haven't heard anybody else come out there and say that. No one. So for him to say that he's a racist, I got to say that I don't really believe that, because no one else has said this. And Phil Jackson has spent his entire career around black players. So if he's a racist, why didn't Jordan pick up on that? Help me understand something. If Phil Jackson draws up a play for Tony Kukoc over Scottie Pippen, he's a racist. But if he draws up a play for Jordan over Scottie Pippen, is he a racist too? That's absurd. That makes no sense. How could it be because there he's racist? So I don't get it. So what? So Jordan, if I'm having difficulties reasoning it, it lets you know there's some holes in it. If it is, this thing should be understandable quickly. But if I'm having difficulties trying to process what's being said here, there's some holes in this, because I can reason pretty fairly well. And I don't see how racism plays a role in all of this. Now, there's a school of people out there, because there was a big kind of spat that was had on TV with Will Kane and Stephen A. Smith, and I think it was Max Kellerman a number of years ago with Carmelo Anthony or something like this, when Phil Jackson was the team president of the New York Knicks, and I think he referred to LeBron James, his crew or whatever it is, as his posse. And that statement that he made, people, not all, some people tried to say that Phil Jackson was a racist because he called LeBron James his crew posse. And I thought that was a reach. Like, wait a minute. How is that racist, first of all? How's that racist? I was born and raised in the States. I don't think me or any of my friends that I grew up with would have, like, how is that racist? It could just be that you're hypersensitive, that any little thing somebody says to you is right. Now, I know I experience racism. Okay? I've experienced it. In some cases, it's subtle. But I thought that was a reach. Because, again, if you're going to call somebody racist, you got to look at the person. You can't just throw a term out at somebody, well, he's racist. You got to look at the person. You got to look at the person's behavior. You got to look at the person's history. And when you look at those things, we're talking about Phil Jackson here, I don't see that. Now, I know him and Kobe Bryant didn't get along, but I never heard Kobe come out and say he's a racist. I never heard Shaq say he's a racist. So what? Shaq abides racist people? Kobe supports them. Ty Lue supports them. Matt Barnes supports racist people. Ron Artest, Lamar Odom, these guys. Like, so When he said that, I was like, okay, I don't know what Scottie Pippen is saying, number one. Number two, Scottie Pippen has said some outlandish things, right? It's like every day he's flip-flopping with the Jordan and LeBron thing. I don't know what he's saying with most of his comments. Then he has some things to say about Jordan. And, at the end of all of that, I got to say this. Was Scottie Pippen bitter or jealous of Michael Jordan? Because Skip Bayless has brought up this point on numerous occasions, and here's the reason why. If you look at Scottie Pippen's career, he had an illustrious career. He's a 6-time champion, 7-time All-Star Game MVP. He's been on 3, 5, 7 All-NBA teams, 8 All-First defensive teams, 2 second teams. Led the league in steals in 1995. For his career, he averaged 16 points per game, 6.4 rebounds, and 5.4 assists. I think the year that Jordan didn't play, I think that was in 1994, 1995. I believe the season was, he averaged 21 points per game, 48% shooting from the field, 34.5% from the 3-point line, 71.6% from the free throw line, got you 8 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2.9 steals per game. These are fantastic numbers. Right? But that's not Michael Jordan numbers. It's not. And I think we're kind of getting confused here. Jordan, every time I hear Jordan talk about his championship runs, he said there's no way I win those titles without Scottie Pippen. I've yet to hear Scottie Pippen say, during my championship years, we don't win those titles without Michael Jordan. I don't win those titles. I've yet to hear Scottie Pippen say that. At any point, I've never heard him say that. I've heard Jordan consistently concede the fact that he doesn't win 6 titles without Scottie Pippen. Jordan needed Scottie Pippen. That's all he needed. Jordan only played, if I'm not mistaken, with 2 Hall of Famers and won 6 championships. His first run, he played with 1. The only Hall of Famer that Michael Jordan played with in his first 3-peat was Scottie Pippen. In his second 3-peat, he played with 2. Dennis Rodman, who some people consider one of the best defensive players of all time, certainly the greatest rebounder of all time. There were Bill Russell and these guys talking about defense. And Scottie Pippen, right? And so we give him that credit. But what championship did Scottie Pippen win without Jordan? And I think there's some jealousy there. Because Scottie Pippen did not understand that Jordan was the main reason they were winning. He wasn't the only reason. He was the main reason. He was the driving force. Jordan took a Chicago Bulls organization that was mired in irrelevance, and he brought them into prominence. One of the reasons he got upset in that docuseries, talking about new players coming in and feeling the type of way, like as if you trying to ride the coattails of the success. He's like, we built this thing from the ground. What are you walking in here feeling like when you're feeling yourself? He's like, we built this from the ground. You get on the floor. You start at the bottom, like we did. When I got here, this organization was nothing, and he built it. Jordan built the Chicago Bulls, not by himself, obviously, but he was the main reason that organization turned into a dynasty. They have not sniffed a championship since his departure. When next are the Chicago Bulls going to win an NBA title? When next? Jordan's shoes are the most popular sports shoes ever. What does that have to do with Scottie Pippen? And I think Scottie Pippen probably hasn't come to the realization that Jordan was the main reason that they won. I hear a lot of bitterness from Scottie Pippen. I got to say it. I hear a lot of bitterness. For you to come out and call Phil Jackson a racist, you have to substantiate that. It can't just be, oh, he didn't draw up a play for me, so therefore he's a racist. But then he would draw up all of those other plays for Jordan, and Jordan is black too. So help me understand, where's the racism here? In the early years, the first 3-peat with Shaq and Kobe, one of the reasons Kobe had issues with Phil Jackson was because he was giving preferential treatment to Shaq. So help me understand. So what? He was racist against Kobe to Shaq? Like, what are we talking about here? You have to give some evidence. You just can't throw out statements like that. And the reason I was around him. What? What are we talking about? There was a player, I think, that was recently accused, a basketball player, I'm not going to say his name, by a woman that I think he made some sex. No, that she had a baby and it was his baby and all of this stuff. Turned out not to be true. So he's suing her for defamation. It's not true. And I'm not letting it go. You didn't give me the evidence. Then you said I'm suing you. So if Phil Jackson is a racist, you got to give me some more. Things need to add up for you to say that he's that's an inflammatory statement you just threw out there. Inflammatory. Then you've been out there saying a bunch of crazy stuff, talking about LeBron is better than Jordan. Then the next day, Jordan, you would never put Jordan in the same LeBron in this. Scottie Pippen is talking out of both sides of his mouth. Then you call Phil Jackson a racist because he drew up a play for Tony Kukoc. What? I don't get it. Now, I get the fact that you felt some type of way about Jordan, saying that we understand. We get that totally. That's fine. You can have your beef with him. But then to just throw, what's I don't see it. Now, some people will say, well, no. If you're going to say Phil Jackson is a racist, you got to give me more evidence. Calling somebody's clique a posse is not enough for me. I'm sorry. It's just, I don't believe it. Phil Jackson, for his entire coaching career, has been surrounded by black players. Why hasn't any other black athlete that he's played with, including Michael Jordan, come out and say that? So what? Again, I say it again. Michael Jordan suffers racist people? What? Help me understand this. I've never heard this before. The only two people I've heard this from is Scottie Pippen and LeBron James. And LeBron James doesn't even spend any time with Phil Jackson for him to know that he's a racist. So how does he know he's a racist? Posse is not even a word we use it's not even in the vernacular of people today. When's the last time you heard somebody use the word posse? It's an old term. It's like Jack. What's going on, Jack? Nobody uses that terminology, Jack. This is an old term. How old is Phil Jackson? The guy's 60-something years old. It's a term that they used then. So if he said this is crew, he's racist too? What are we talking about? When did we become so hypersensitive to things like this? I don't understand. Now, some people are going to feel away, and you have 100% right to feel the way that you feel. I'm not saying you have to agree with me. In no way, shape, or form do you have to agree with me. You have every single right to feel the way that you want to feel. And I have every right to feel the way that I want to feel. As long as you don't impose your views on me, we're fine. As long as I don't impose my views on you, we're fine. You don't have to feel the way I feel. And I for damn sure ain't got to feel the way you feel. But you got to give me more. You got to give me more. It's not like Donald Sterling. These things have been documented. There's audios. There are different players coming out and saying, so we can understand that. Phil Jackson has had a litany of black players play for him. Why haven't I heard any of them say that? Even retired players come out there and say that. They have nothing to lose. Why haven't they said it? I don't understand this thing. I just don't get it. So listen, you're going to say that about the guy. It needs to be substantiated. Drawing up a play for Tony Kukoc doesn't hold water. Now, if you're telling me, if the case were in fact that Phil Jackson had a team of predominantly white players, and he was constantly being preferential to them over his black players, you got me. You sold me. But in this case, it's not the issue. And I don't see it. So for those, there are going to be some people, and I think this is a contentious conversation we need to have, but I think it's important because there are going to be people that feel that he is a racist. And the one thing on our channel, we don't suffer emotions, meaning you can say what you want to say, but please substantiate it. Give some evidence. And if some people are going to say he's a racist, give me some evidence. Send me the articles. Send me the places where people said it. If it's just you sitting from where you are and analyzing the facts, and you're going off of that one thing, then you lost me. We just got to be careful with this because whenever we throw this thing out, this guy is racist or that guy is, you waste it when an opportunity, when an opportunity is, when a suitable moment arrives where there is an act of racism and you're always throwing it out, people don't take you seriously. You're wasting the benefit of the doubt on things that aren't substantiated. So please, if that's what he's going to say, to me, I was like, These are some inflammatory comments. You can say this and this and it, but to call somebody a racist, that's a big one. And then the reason for it is I was around the guy all this time. But yeah, Scottie Pippen wasn't the only person around Michael Jordan. I mean, Phil Jackson. So why aren't all, and finally, again, why hasn't Michael Jordan said anything? So I know I went off here on a bit of a tangent, but I needed to kind of explain my thoughts. I figured that this segment needed to be a little bit longer, and I didn't want to rush my way through it, just to rush it through so it can be 10 minutes, and then we can, people can, I watched it for 10 minutes. No. I wanted to get my thoughts out there. So what I want to know from you guys is, what are your thoughts on all of this? What are your thoughts? What are your opinions? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Again, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Once again, this is Charles here from Dreamerspro. Wishing you guys an amazing day and catch you guys on the next episode.